Hello and welcome to Mono TV. If you are waiting for the Wonka audiobook to continue, I'm sorry, I am working on that with time. Doing the characters' voices are kind of hard. But I am here to show you a story of my own that I made for Halloween. I know it's November. I'm sorry. It should be fine, but it's whatever. I wanted to show this off because I got first place in my grade. I sent this into a Halloween story contest. I got first place in my grade and fourth place in the entire school. So I wanted to show it off to some others. And I hope you enjoy. Night shift. Elio wished he hadn't gotten this job. Having the night shift for a guard at an insane asylum? His twin brother, Eldest, had taken the morning shift of the job and never said anything was too bad about it, so he offered the night shift to Elio. He just took it because then he and his brother would have something in common for once. Elio walked down the asylum halls. Doors with scratches, windows with old blood, bricks missing from walls or broken. Oh, crap, Elio muttered, his flashlight flickering, slowly dying. He hit the light against his palm, making it flicker some more before it went back to full illumination. He took deep breaths, turning to look around the corridors. A loud thud banged from behind him, and he turned on his feet. The flashlight beamed against a metal door, a patient peeping through the window. Elio walked over slowly, his legs shaking below him as his shoes, borrowed from Eldest, tipped against the tiled floor. Tip, tap, tip, tap, tip. Hey, you doing all right, mate? Elio asked through the door, and the patient growled. You should let me out, the patient muttered, voice calmer than he seemed. His eyes were bloodshot, his lip bleeding. Sorry, I can't let you, Elio whimpered, backing up from the door and making the person frown. The blood trickled down their chin and onto the floor. Why not? Can't you say I'm acting just fine now? They huffed, raising their shoulders and puffing their chest out to look bigger. Elio sighed, turning to another door. He should be like Eldest, not scared of anything. There was another thud behind him, against the door, and Elio turned back, confusion dripping into his expression as a patient disappeared from the window's view. Elio continued to walk down the halls, waving the light back and forth, slowly. Tip, tap, tip, tap. The boy turned when he heard another pair of footsteps, skin against polished tile. Seeing nothing from the light of his flashlight, he turns back to continue his duties. Checking each room, making sure no one had escaped, and proving that his fears were clearly not necessary in this situation. Bump, tip, bump, tap, bump, bump, tip, bump. Elio turned quickly, his heart pounding in his ears, along with the sound of a metal door squeaking open. He quickly ran to the previous patient's room. The door was closed, however blood slowly dripped from the window from the inside. Elio looked through his ring of keys, matching the number on the key to the number on the side of the door. Door 23. 20, 21, 22. Another bang, echoing throughout the halls. Elio looked around quickly, trying to find where the bang came from before finding the key to the corresponding door before him and peeking inside with his flashlight. There was no one. They were probably hiding behind the door to scare him. Yeah. Stuffing the key into the lock, sounds of keys jingling, metal against metal, skin against tile. Elio turned quickly, panic now hitting him hard as his hands shook and his legs quivered, ready to give out. He looked around quickly, trying to find where the footsteps came from. Who's out of their room? Elio yelled, voice shaking, now both hands on the only light source in the halls. He took deep breaths, but each felt like a stab in the chest. After a few moments of no sound, besides his heart and his ears, he turned towards the door and turned the keys quickly. It's all just in his head. It has to be. The door turned outwards, towards Elio. Stupid design idea due to the small hallways. Elio shined his light into the room, only to show nothing. Was this the right room? Room 23, yes. This was their room. Elio moved his hand to the bloodstain, gagging when it was still warm against his palm. He shook his hand aggressively, trying to get the blood off himself. If this isn't their room, or it is their room, why is the blood still warm? And where are they? A cool hand ran along his shoulder, and he whipped back, hitting his outstretched hand against the door. He yelled in pain and held his fingers, dropping the flashlight, which rolled to the side. I told you to let me go. A voice chanted throughout the corridor, loud and haunting, making Elio reach for the light, yelping as something grabbed him from behind, holding him in a headlock. Elio choked out, coughing and gagging, watching as blood pooled slowly at his feet. What would Eldest do? Why don't we show Mr. Guard here how we feel? There was a long cheer, which got louder as Elio was picked up and thrown into the empty room from before. The boy yelled, running to the door just as it closed, sliding his hand between the door and the doorframe to try and catch it and hold it open. Time slowed. Elio reached his hand as far as it could go to try and catch everything in his might to make sure the door wouldn't lock him inside. He screamed in pain as the heavy door closed on his hand, hyperventilating as he felt his bones crush inside his skin and muscle. Very funny, guys, Elio squeaked, tears brimming in his eyes as he saw the patients collectively watching him from outside. Some snickering, others smirking, and one even grabbing his flashlight and keys, waving them in front of the window, and therefore in front of him. Eldest would have known not to shove his hand in a closing door. Let me out! Come on! Sorry, we can't let you. The first patient chimed, blood now running down his forehead and nose, along with his lip. Their smirk wide, their eyes crazed. Small shards of glass jutted out from between the strands of hair, or the ripped fabric of his straitjacket. The group walked away, leaving Elio stuck in the room and his palm in the door. Elio looked at his hand, swelling around his wrist and blood slowly dripping from his ruined hand. He tried opening the door, but it was locked. It always locked when closed. He'd need his keys to open the door, clearly, but the patients had stripped him of any necessary equipment. Hey, let me out! Elio yelled, slamming his fist against the door and watching as the final patients walked away with the group. He tried simply pulling against the door to see if it would give, but of course it didn't. The man huffed, frowning as he started to get desperate. So, finally, pushing past his anxiously beating heart and pulses of pain running through his hand, he put all his might into pulling his hand out with a scream. Crack, snap, tear, drip, 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 drip. Elio fell to the ground, tears pricking his eyes as he looked up to see his hand still between the metal. He only had to peer down to see his wrist, apart from his palm. Blood dripping against the soft, white padding, darkened by the loss of light. He could see where his bones had separated, where his skin had ripped and his muscle tore. Tears fell down his cheeks, dampening his already soaking uniform in more than just his blood. He dropped to his knees, his whole body shaking, besides the hand still stuck in the door. Elio coughed out a sob, slowly nudging himself into a corner to hold onto the ripped-up patch of skin and muscle, the broken bone sharp and cutting into his other fingers. Blood oozed out of the wounds, thick, dark, red liquid pooling around his body. He'd be dead by the time his brother came into work tomorrow, and the patient's gone, out of this hellhole at last. Elio wished he hadn't gotten this job.